row, front row to back row by property owner categories, and I'll explain that in just a minute. Could you also keep or turn off your cell phones or put them in the car or whatever? First order of business is to say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It being 7 o'clock on 11 July 2013, call this special meeting of the Town of Liberty Grove. This is a public meeting informational hearing. The purpose of this meeting is designed to hear opinions from you. And I want to stress that at the outset. This is not a debate. It's not where things are going to be batted back and forth. The purpose is to hear from you. Present at the front here are the town board members. From your right to left, Mr. Frank Forker. Frank has been on the board since 2009. He's a former member of the Highway Committee, served in good stead. Gary Farber. Gary is the newest board member. Gary is the current town board member who also serves on the Highway Committee. So you've got the board and Highway Committee experience there for the first two folks to your right. Next is Nancy Goss. Nancy has been on the board since 2009. Nancy is head of the Board of Zoning Board and Planning Committee. Excuse me, Nancy's been on since 2007. I can't read my own writing here. Lou Cavazos. Mr. Cavazos has been on the board since 2012 and is a former attorney. John Lowry has been on the board since 2009 as chairman. John was also the chairman of the Village of Ephraim, where I was the assessor for 40 years. So he and I have some prior relations. Bud Combs, Walter Bud Combs, is the clerk administrator. Bud has been the clerk in the town of Liberty Grove since the year 1983, so that'll be 30 years this year. And last but certainly not least, Janet Johnson, our lovely administrative assistant. I like to do that. I like to compliment her and watch her. Janet has been on the board since 1999 and will be taking the minutes of this meeting. My name is Michael Walker. I was the assessor in this town from 1974 through 1997. I just recently retired as the assessor for several communities in Northern Door, including Ephraim, Bailey's Harbor, Sister Bay, and I have been the assessor in Northern Door County for 40 years. And because I retired, I thought, well, I should have something to do, so here I am. The purpose of this meeting, again, is to take and listen to testimony, your opinions, your beliefs. I would ask initially, and I will run this very tightly in the sense that you're not here to hiss, boo, jeer, throw things, or neither to applaud, cheer, and give attaboys. We think we want this meeting to be respectful to all points of view, as I'm sure all points of view will be represented by these comments that are coming. First of all, I'd like to go into a little bit of the background history and a basic current fact situation as they exist at this moment. The dialogue, research, and so on for the Garrett Bay Road resurfacing rebuilding project began sometime in 2012 and began in earnest pretty significantly during January of 2013. In the 6 to 7 months since that time, we have made it pretty much our number one priority, along with heritage roads and some other things that are tandem or corollary to the Garrett Bay Road resurfacing project. I was elected chairman by my colleagues of this committee in January 2013. Also in 2013, in January of 2013, Mr. Steve Parent was hired as our consulting engineer, who is a principal in Baldwin Engineering and Surveying. Mr. Parent did work as well on Isleview Road, and this town was very impressed with his work. He's a Door County native and has been in this business for some time. His initial report to us was made a meeting amongst Jay Olson, myself, Bud Combs, and him when he gave us the preliminary information about Garrett Bay Road, its upgrades and status. I'll read in part from his initial evaluation of the situation. He recited that the Garrett Bay Road is the road count, or the traffic count of Garrett Bay Road is approximately 4 times that of Isleview Road, where a clear zone of 34 feet on Isleview Road was somewhat negotiable. A 34-foot clear zone on Garrett Bay Road should be considered the absolute minimum. Now, bear in mind, please, that the 34-foot clear zone includes 20 feet for the asphalt of the road itself. So that would therefore deduce to 7 feet clear zone on each side of the road. A 34-foot clear zone provides 7 feet from the edge of the pavement. This may be acceptable for safety, but does not provide adequate space for snow storage and proper road drainage. A 10-foot or 40-foot clear zone should be seriously considered. A reduction of the speed limit to 35 miles an hour should be considered. Slightly cutting the hill near the intersection with Cedar Dell Lane should be considered. If bike lanes are being considered, the pavement width would have to be increased by 5 feet on each side. Now, again, this was his preliminary report. Fast forward to July 1st of this year. Meetings, input from citizens, inspections, dialogue from Mr. Parent, and his Highway Committee presentation on 1 July when we had our monthly July meeting. And I'll just again go through the high points. First of all, I want to point out and make sure everyone understands that the right-of-way along Garrett Bay Road has been marked with pink pin flags. I got an email here a day or two ago from someone who thought that those pin flags, which denote the right-of-way of between 50 to 66 feet wide, denoted that all the trees between those two were going to be cut. That is not correct. Nowhere near it. Mr. Parent prepared a map showing the distance from the painted center line marks on the road to the right-of-way flags. Copies of that map are available for the public, I understand, from Janet, or on the website, the town website. Steve pointed out that Garrett Bay Road is fairly well centered within this 50 to 66 foot right-of-way. You should know that. Isleview Road had more of a meandering, snake-like line of sight, whereas Garrett Bay Road, what you see is pretty much what you get there. The road between the center of the road the road is pretty well spaced between the stated right-of-way. Further high points, the clear zone, something of obvious concern to all of you. The clear zone is the distance from the edge of the pavement to any roadside obstruction. And it exists to allow a driver who inadvertently leaves the roadway a space to recover. Additional benefits of an adequate clear zone are safety for pedestrians and bicyclists, something obviously of concern on Garrett Bay Road because there's a lot of both, especially during this time of the year. Storage for snow in the winter, cooling of melted snow, and the allowance of sunlight and to melt the snow and ice on the road during winter. Currently, the town speed limit is an advisory 35 miles an hour. Now, what this means is that the speed limit as posted by the town, and advisory only, is 35 miles an hour. The legal speed limit, however, at this moment is 55 miles an hour. To allow that, to make the reduction in that speed limit is somewhat of a laborious process. We have begun that process, and all the town board members and all the highway committee members are in a unanimous agreement that the speed on Garrett Bay Road should not exceed 35 miles an hour. So we're of one agreement, but when you work with the State Department of Transportation, sometimes things take a while. This is one of those times. The volume of Garrett Bay Road, as previously mentioned, is certainly much greater in comparison on Isle View Road. And Steve, in considering all these factors and others which I'm not mentioning, made the following recommendations, and this is on 1 July. He recommended a clear zone of 8 feet, which from each side of the road indicates a total clear zone of 36 feet, again, considering 20 feet wide of the asphalt itself. He recommended removing any trees that are dead or dying, leaning significantly with 8 to 10 feet of the pavement. Again, dead trees, not live trees. In areas with a deep ravine or wetland, it is not necessary to remove the trees. Fourth recommendation, provide proper signage, including narrow road, bicyclists, pedestrians, and curb ahead as appropriate. And finally, have discussions with WPS, encouraging them to meet the same clear zone requirements anytime they work on or replace any of the poles. That recommendation Steve made on the 1st of July. Our last highway committee meeting was on the 3rd of July. It was 8 days ago. At that meeting, the highway committee agreed to the following. They agreed that 35 miles an hour on Garrett Bay Road was the target speed limit to be achieved. They agreed that the paved surface should stay at 20 feet. It should not be expanded. They agreed to mark and cut all dead trees in an 8-foot clear zone as determined by 3 committee members minimum, one of which I believe is Mike Barkey, who has to be placed with that responsibility among the committee members. The committee agreed to change the roadbed only to save really special trees. They agreed to not make undulations or not flatten the roadbed, but leave the undulations that are there. They agreed, and this is all unanimously, I might add, to walk Garrett Bay Road on Wednesday, 3 July at 9 a.m., starting at Maplewood Road, to determine the clear zone. We then agreed to meet at 1 o'clock on the same day to just come up with a recommendation for the town board, some of which I just read, and including a decision on the clear zone. And finally, we agreed unanimously that the shoulders of the road should be 2 to 3 feet. We inspected or had our road tour on Garrett Bay Road, primarily from the Maplewood Road to the boat launch. That section, which is approximately the northern half of Garrett Bay Road, as the southern half pretty much has no tree impact whatsoever. That was our evaluation as well. We did that between 9 o'clock and noon. We had 2 arborists with us who made on-the-spot determinations of the health of the trees. We as well had an entourage of the public that at one point numbered approximately 20 people, and that number of people waned as the morning went on to I think about a dozen, 10 to 12. We then adjourned for lunch, met at 1 o'clock, and each of us had our own points of view as to what an appropriate clear zone was, some expressing slight variances, but one of the things that, and a motion to that effect was made and carried, to have a clear zone no wider than 6 feet from the edge of the road. That did fly in the face of some logic, as previously recited to you, but we felt that the preservation of Garrett Bay Road as much as possible was something that we all pretty much want. And so we adopted a 6-foot clear zone, and also we unanimously passed a motion to have a tree map ready, which I understand was completed today. That is available again on the town website and or by copy through Janet at the office. That brings us pretty much to to the present moment. Now, again, the purpose of this meeting is to have you all each express your opinions, but I want you all to obviously be in possession of the facts. I give you a couple of questions. Well, I already mentioned one about the clear zone. I also stress that there were a couple of things. If you read this article in the Door County Advocate, there were a couple of things that were flat out there. And it doesn't directly relate to the clear zone or what I've just gone over, but be careful of what you read anywhere. The purpose of the meeting is your opinions. The town members is that our committee has given the town board, or will be giving it more accurately, this is your avenue for your to approach them directly, regardless of what let me just give you a few ground rules, and then we'll start the process. Please come to the speaker station. Again, we'll go from row by row to maintain some order. State your name and spell your last name, please, so Janet can pick it up in her notes. And your address, your local address here in Liberty Grove. Your remarks will be limited to 3 minutes. I would allow a little latitude on that of 3 to 5 minutes. I've just been handed a note to what do the yellow flags mean. The yellow flags were, I bring that up because I missed that in my, on the 3rd of July, after the meeting we had on 1 o'clock, Bud Combs and I put the yellow flags out denoting the clear zone. That those yellow flags should be and are approximately 6 feet on either side of the asphalt. So, no, those yellow flags are 6 feet on either side of the road. Back to the speaker business. Please speak your name, spelling your last name, your local address. Limit your remarks if you can to 3 minutes. I'll allow up to 5 as long as you're not repetitive and telling us things that have been or said before. I would ask again for politeness and respectful to all who wish to speak. The property owner groups, and I'm doing this on purpose, and I would like to hear from first, are the people who live on Garrett Bay Road between Maplewood Road and the Garrett Bay Boat Launch. I want to be sure that the people who live on the road are given the opportunity to speak and make their comments and opinions known as we go. Then, after those folks are done, we'll do all of Garrett Bay Road residents or property owners. Then we'll go to all of Liberty Grove property owners, and finally, if there's anyone from another community, we will allow them to speak as well. So we'll go row by row. Is there anyone on row 1 who wishes to speak to the board?
Hi, my name is Chris Piotrowski. Last name is spelled Piotrowski, and we're a property owner at 12511 Garrett Bay Road. And this is Allison, my daughter, who's 3, Samuel, my son, who's 5, and my oldest son, who's 7, is currently at his t-ball game, who's not here tonight. But what we wanted to tell the committee is 8 years ago, we fell in love with Garrett Bay Road, and we decided to purchase a property there. And our kids love the place and enjoy it as well. And one of the things that we notice is not only do cars travel at high rates of speed, they do go in excess of 55 miles an hour. We've seen it on several occasions. So what we did is we actually purchased signs saying we have 3 young children in the area, and they do play outside, and they like to play ball, and every once in a while a ball does happen to go out of your yard and into the street. We actually had 4 sets of signs that were posted on our property saying, please slow down, there's children in the area. they were actually stolen and taken off our property, which I found hard to believe, and I was very disappointed in the fact that that happened. So first and foremost, we believe that the speed limit should be 35 miles an hour, just due to public safety and safety of our children. Second of all, our property is one of the oldest houses or cabins on the road. It's very close to the road. In fact, you can measure it in a matter of feet. So when you think about expanding the right of way in the clear zone, you're actually expanding that closer to where my kids are playing each and every day. So we asked the board to take that into consideration, because one of the biggest fears we have is for the 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old of someday an accident happening and one of our kids coming taking the car. So we'd ask for the board to take that into consideration as they're debating and thinking about the different options at hand. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm not in that piece, but could I speak anyway? I'm a little bit further down here.
Sure.
Hi, board members. My name is Liz Gannon, Gannon, and we have been landowners at 1124 Garrett Bay Road, which is beyond the dead end sign, for about 30 years, with our home built there for the last 17 years. Let me thank all of you. First of all, I realize this is a challenging situation and a lot of you are volunteering a lot of time, so I appreciate that. I will say, and I understand again, I wish that the tree map had been available prior to this meeting, just so I personally could familiarize myself with that. I'm glad to hear that there has been an acknowledgement made about the centennial trees. I know there's a large number because I went along and counted, and I think they're very important to maintain, so that's really good. As to the issue of speeding, in my view, it has been a large number of commercial vehicles that may not, may have different reasons for wanting to go fast, Federal Express, UPS, gas delivery. In the last week, I had bicyclists scream at me, "You and your dog, get out of the way." They were going so fast by me, they almost ran me over. Today, on the way here in that stretch of Garrett Bay Road, there were 4 minor children, 2 on each moped driving along, which is obviously against the law. This brings me to, where is law enforcement, whether it's the sheriff or whatever? There is definitely, no matter what we do or what signs we put up or what expenditures are made, there definitely is a need for police enforcement along there. And I do believe I am correct when I say that police can pull anybody over regardless of the speed limit if they feel that they're endangering public safety. One thing that is used in a lot of places might be a speed bump, which I personally feel definitely along that hairpin turn at the hairpin turn at the boat launch. That is clearly an area that needs to be addressed. I personally am very afraid every time I go around there that I'm going to be hit head on. Of course, there's been a tremendous amount of discussion from, and idle gossip from people as to the Isle View project. One of the things that I would ask, and again, because I haven't heard from Gary or understanding exactly how the highway department marks the road, I would ask that any Garrett Bay Road resident who wishes to monitor any actual tree removal process be permitted, based on idle gossip that I have heard that liberties were taken on Isle View Road in removing trees is storms. Personally, I'm very concerned about the need to remove all of the power and telephone poles and cables and all that. And based on say, I understand the review process took from April through November, and I'd hate to have my
Okay, I will answer your question because it's a pretty direct, simple question, but in the future, we're not gonna do too much of that again. We're here to listen, but that's all right. In my opinion, there was never any, first of all, there's no provision for taking a referendum vote in the typical road building procedure. And discussing and evaluating items that are necessary about safety on one hand, elasticity on the other, and so on. A vote among people who don't even live on the road, I don't think, and these folks can answer that better than I can, is seen as being very politically correct from the standpoint that a lot of people are expressing an opinion that the people on a certain road are going to have to live with. Secondly, it's my opinion only, and it's as that, but in my opinion, for the whole between that safety and relativity, safety will and that's why we invest the big money to sit down and do, do what we're doing right now. Do a tree evaluation on the tree. So we're
that road is Liberty Road in Door County. Door County and Liberty Road has been part of my life for about 65 years, and I find it very, very gratifying that this effort is being made. As to speed limit, I agree wholeheartedly that 35 miles an hour should be the maximum. I do note that as you turn off the Highway 42 and go past our house up to the park, I see an advisory sign apparently at 25 miles an hour, which, very frankly, no one seems to pay any attention to whatsoever. I don't know if you're talking about changing the entire roadway from 42 north at 35, or you're talking about maintaining that 25 mile an hour zone. I would certainly recommend you try and maintain it, and I guess I'll offer my driveway to the sheriff if he needs a place to park his vehicle. As far as redoing the road, certainly the pavement obviously needs repair and maintenance. I would certainly like to see the road stay exactly as it is. I understand the concerns for safety and all this other, but it seems to me with such a scenic vista as we have there and with what it means to Liberty Grove, I think it would be well if we could maintain what we presently have and repair it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Okay, anyone else on Garrett Bay Road?
I have property on Garrett Bay Road, but my address is Cedar Dell. Is that okay?
Sure.
Jack Finger, 1253 Cedar Dell Lane. First of all, I want to thank you for all the time and effort and service that you provide the community. I truly understand it's not an easy job, and having done road issues ever since we've been in Cedar Dell, I have some empathy for you. After driving, walking, biking on Garrett Bay Road since 1996, I always enjoyed the feel of this place, not just the road. This road is an extension of the local environment. This is not a service road leading to businesses, resorts, and other high-volume destinations. It is essentially a subdivision road. Does it require major reconstruction with shoulders and sightline clearance? I don't think so. When this road resurfacing project came to light, I was most concerned about the trees and the impact that this resurfacing, which has become a bit of a reconstruct, would do to the feel of this place. Since that time, I've paid more attention to the actual road. All Garrett Bay Road needs is resurfacing. It does not need a shoulder or newly constructed sightlines. It does need a few signs, posted speeds, pedestrian and bike presence. Shoulder should help maintain road integrity. It's really not an issue when you look at the road. The shoulders or the edge of the road is really in pretty good shape overall. Many roads in the town and county have no shoulders at all and are still in very good shape. The town has the opportunity to maintain the feel of the local environment rather than make this place like all the rest. Just because you can does not mean you should. If over 20 years, and I heard this at a previous meeting, there were only 20 or so accidents on Garrett Bay Road. And that's amazing when you think of this unposted road with the possibility of 55 miles an hour and above. What would the totals be like if it were only 35 miles an hour? I might add that all this is without signage, pedestrian, and bike traffic in the wooded area of the road, which is of greatest concern. If the road were crowned and signed properly, the need for reconstruction of shoulder and sight lines, I think would be unnecessary, and I feel that the place could remain the same. As a suggestion for the board, maybe we should base our decision-making on what we want our community to be in the future, rather than try to mold our community to look like everyone else. We have a special opportunity here to maintain a new direction for our town and set it apart from the rest of the county and the state. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, anyone else on Garrett Bay Road? Okay. Well, ma'am?
Can we have a second person from the same house?
From the same house?
From the same property.
Oh.
My husband's fault.
Sure.
I'm Karen Allen, ALLEN, 12066 Garrett Bay Road. I just thought I'd like to share an experience we had. Ironically, it was the night before the last meeting in June. And we were enjoying the sunset in Wills Park, and another couple was there and told us they were from Colorado, and went on to say how much they enjoy coming to Door County because of our beautiful roads. They enjoy biking, and this is why they and their family come, enjoy the hotels, the restaurants and things, and told us what a very special place we have here, which I think most of us know already, but they reiterated this. I can see you are considering many of these things, and I really do. Between the report from January and now, I see a big difference, and I want to thank you for your consideration. Our family has been biking this road for, well, all of our children and now all our grandchildren, and do enjoy it. And speaking of biking, just yesterday I was biking up the road, and I won't bore you with naming it, but I counted 9 varieties of our native wildflowers just on that pretty section. I hope much of it doesn't have to be cleared. I do understand possibly the need of a shoulder. I'm not an engineer. If it has to be there to hold the land or the road in place, I do understand that. But again, thank you for considering and remembering the beauty. And I think we are all either tourists or homeowners because we do enjoy the county. So, thanks, Ken.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we seem to have strayed from Garrett Bay Road to the other roads adjoining. Is there anyone else, again, for the last time on Garrett Bay Road itself who wishes to speak? Seeing no hands, I will then move to the category of any Town of Liberty and property owner. From row 2, anyone in row 2 that wishes to speak, sir?
My name is Tim Kay, and my family has a property on 12550 Door Bluff Road, and was purchased approximately 1970. So, been obviously coming up to that area for many years of my life, and the reason for standing in front of you here, my first time giving a testimony in this type of case, is because it's very important to me. Just to start out, I feel a little bit bad because I feel like I'm going to be one of those people that's disappointed in the end. But I'm very optimistic and I'm a positive contributor. I walked several roads when I got involved in this project. I walked several roads to look at how they were constructed. And first here, a picture of Garrett Bay Road, the obvious qualities of canopy that we all enjoy. And basically, I walked across the pink flag line. I know that's the right-of-way. But what I found on Timberline Road is that the cut line was the same as is being proposed for the right-of-way on Garrett Bay Road. In other words, the pink flags flipped when I pasted off. And I know that you've got yellow flags now for the cut line. I'm happy to know that the clear zone is not the pink flags. I just wanted to caution everybody based on my walk. I was seeing that the pink flag distance was similar to be, or exact to the clear zone on Timberline Road and Highway 42. So that brought up some concern. And I think, just want to encourage the board going forward, we really manage the project tightly in terms of the preservation aspects of it, so we don't leave it up to assumption that somebody knows what trees to cut and what excavations to make. My personal opinion is that joining my neighbors and friends that believe there should be no widening of the road, I would fit in that category. No increase in clear zone, I would fit in that category. We have, as our township is named Liberty Grove, we have the liberty to make the township look like we want it to look for ourselves and for people that come here to enjoy it for perpetuity. I mean, that gives us the liberty to do creative new things with our construction. I'm a mechanical engineer. I have no problem with procedures and doing things by the book. However, in this case, where quality of life and the quality of our environment and the care of our environment is very important in this area, I suggest and believe in striking out and doing things differently where warranted. Thank you for your time and your efforts on, digging in the details with this project. I think it's a great project. I hope, like I said, Garrett Bay Road can look pretty much the same as it does after the repair as it does now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, road 2. Anyone else in road 2? Sir?
My name is Steve Meehoff. I live at 2305 Orchard Lane in Liberty Grove. I own acreage on Garrett Bay Road in the wooded area. I own about approximately 8 acres that adjoins the road. I think what we all have to ask ourselves is, why do we live here? It's not the most convenient place to do shopping, as you no doubt know. It's not the most convenient place to get health care. You have to travel to get health care, as you know. It certainly is not the most convenient place to get further education beyond high school. You need to travel unless you can get something online. And you're lucky if you can get something online, because Some of us can't get high-speed internet. It's not the most convenient place to travel from. You're in a car, there aren't airports that you can get, or trains that you can catch. You need to drive to get somewhere. So why do we live here? The last winter went on forever, at least it felt like it to me. We live here because it's beautiful. We live here because it's serene. We live here because of the bay and the lake and the beaches and the trees and the serenity and the peace and the quiet and the magic that's Northern Door County. It's not Chicago, it's not Milwaukee, it's not Appleton, it's not Green Bay, it's not Sturgeon Bay. They have big roads with lights and freeways. I do business there all the time. I have to drive from here. It's very inconvenient. I live here because I love it here, and I love it the way that it is. I love Garrett Bay the way that it is. Now it's time for us to reconstruct the road. It needs to be done. No one argues that. I don't argue that. I think it needs to be done. What is reasonable relative to the shoulders? That's really what we're talking about, the clear-cut zone. I am a minimalist. How much do we have to cut? I'd like that road to be very much the way that it was before we reconstructed the road. The holes, I went out and measured it. Some of them are 34 inches from the road pavement, and I took a record of it. A lot of them are 3 feet, 4 feet, whatever. I don't understand why we'd want to clear beyond that. Those are obstructions. Your definition of clear zone is to obstruction. Certainly those poles are an obstruction. You hit that, you're gonna know it. So I think we need to do the minimal amount of clearing. We do need to lower the speed limit to 35 miles an hour, not only on Garrett Bay Road, but on many of the other town roads where there are no speeds by a process of nothing being posted. It's 55 miles an hour and people are doing 65 miles an hour. Many of our other roads are also need to have speed limits, and I think slowing it down on Garrett Bay Road, cutting some of the very necessary trees and brush that needs to be cut in a minimalist fashion, and reconstructing the road is what the majority wants. I think that it should have been put to a vote at a town meeting or at a referendum. I think that there's no question that people would vote for redoing the road and redoing the road in a minimalist way. That's what I believe. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ito. Let's see. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Lizzie Graham, Graham. My husband David and I own a home at 12533 Door Bluff Road. So whenever we drive to and from our property, we reside in Evanston, Illinois. When we drive to and from our property, we go up Garrett Bay Road. And quite frankly, Garrett Bay Road is the reason that we bought our property on Door Bluff Road. We looked throughout northern Door County. We came here for the reasons that so many other people have articulated: the natural beauty, the solitude, the quiet. And when we drove down Garrett Bay Road, and we saw that cathedral of trees, our hearts leapt. And we knew that this is where we wanted to have a special place for us and our family, our grandchildren to come. I would very much like the board. I do understand that it is your responsibility to preserve the safety of the community, of the public, of your employees who travel on that road. But I also do understand that it is your responsibility to steward the assets of our community. And this is such a valuable asset. It is what drew us, it is what drew thousands of people to Northern Door County and contribute to the wealth of our community. I just want to ask you, please, to consider preserving the rustic character of the road. It's not really necessarily always a balance between safety and rusticity. I think we can have both if we lower the speed limit, perhaps add a speed bump here and there, and preserve the natural cathedral of trees over Garrett Bay Road. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else in row 2, please? Okay. Sir?
My name is Ronald Fruncic, F-R-U-N-C-E-K. My wife Teresa and I, seated there. We live at 12292 Garrett Bay Road. We had our property since 1973. We had an apple orchard there. We wanted to be involved in the apple orchard, and Ralph Charney helped us with the orchard. And what we found being city slickers is a tremendous amount of work. We totally abandoned that after our arms couldn't. I know I'm going to be reiterating, I guess, some of the things that were going to be said here, but I was sitting there and saying, I have to come out and talk to you people. I just feel it's so compelling that we reduce that speed limit. That speed limit, I mean, that road used to be very, very nice. I mean, people have said, why do we want to build there? We looked all over Door County for land. And like this one person said, that's why we stayed there. That's why we built there. Because it was quiet, it was peaceful. We both had jobs that were high tension. And this is where we came to relax. We retired, we built here, and with our grandkids, as one person here with the 2 kids, we just feel, some people go at least 70 miles an hour. The trucks that go through there, I mean, they just fly through here. And why? This is a road, a village road. It's not Highway 42. I just don't understand it. I mean, even Old Stage Road, they fly by there too. It just goes like crazy. I mean, this is Door County. We come here to relax. We're not here in the city of Chicago. We're not here in Milwaukee. You know, this is why you come. You gotta preserve this. And you sit there and you hear these people, please, listen to them. Listen to us. Vote the correct way. Thank you.
Anyone else in row 2? Row 3, please. Alex?
My name is Alex Molnar, M-O-L-N-A-R. I live at 12530 Cedardale Lane, which is about 100 yards off of Garrett Bay Road, and I can't get to our cottage or from our cottage without traveling on Garrett Bay Road, so I have a pretty close relationship to it. Before I speak to the town board, I would like to just take a moment to speak to the people in this room. I can't say enough good things about the people who are serving on the board and their responsiveness and their openness. I want to mention Mike Walker in particular, who has spent hours, I know, on this, but has done everything in his power to listen to every possible point of view, to look for every opportunity to find a reasonable middle ground, and to try and have this process be a process in which the community is genuinely engaged and speaking with its elected representatives and having an opportunity to be heard and being taken into account. I'm a pretty aggressive guy and I'm pretty vocal, and I grew up in Chicago, so I have sharp elbows. And what I can say is that I've sat and spoken with every single person who's sitting up front here, every single person. They've given me their time, they've given me their attention, they've given me thoughtful responses. We have a lot to be proud of in this town, and one of the things is the Highway Committee and the town board, they are listening. I mean, this map that you have, I'm sorry, bud, I gotta say it. This map that you have represents hours and hours and hours of work. I walked with the Highway Committee when they walked that section of Garrett Bay Road. I was trying to write notes on the trees. I don't know how Bud actually did this. This is a terrific map. It's very helpful to us as community members to understand and to be reassured that this project is being closely looked at and carefully attended to. Mike, I think you left something out, and I'm gonna just deign to mention it, and that is what I understood, and correct me if I'm incorrect, but what I understood the Highway Committee to say is the clear zone is 6 feet with many exceptions. So it will not be the case, if I understand what the Highway Committee is recommending, that every tree within that 6-foot distance from the edge of the paved surface on either side is slated to be taken or recommended to be taken. The Highway Committee has identified many, many trees within that zone that it does not recommend taking. Am I correct in that?
You are.
Yeah, and that's the reason for this map, so that the Highway Committee can go back again, walk the road, and identify those trees that they're gonna recommend to the board not to take. So, first thing, I just had to get it off my chest. Thank you. Thank all of you very much for your service to this community. You've provided a great service. And let me say, also, we're on the verge of something really quite wonderful here. Northern Door County is not going to be, Liberty Grove is not going to be Egg Harbor. And it's not going to be Fish Creek. And I have heard a number of people on the town board and on the Highway Committee express an interest in the future of Liberty Grove being in ecotourism and this being a green destination. I think that probably everybody in this room would agree with that orientation. And I think what we're moving toward here is integrating the consideration of our beautiful highways and byways into the overall town plan for making Liberty Grove's niche, if you want to describe it that way, ecotourism and a green destination. We're the place where people do come to slow down, and our roads should send that message, and I think they can. I think Garrett Bay Road is a prime example of where preservation and safety are hand in hand. Because the last thing in the world, I know that, I'm not suggesting the town board wants this, the last thing in the world you would ever want is to make that road safer to travel at higher speeds. That would be truly dangerous. I believe that the future of Garrett Bay Road is in making that road slower and bringing the design of the road into congruence with the posted signage, the speed limit sign, so that the road itself sends the message, slow down, take your time. There's something wonderful to see here. From my point of view, and it really does come down to this issue of the clear zone, I think that the Highway Committee's recommendation is a very solid foundation on which to build. These folks worked really hard. They looked at every tree. And I want to comment on somebody like Jay Olson, who looked at every tree and said, I can work around that one. I can get around it. Paid attention. Pat Hawkers, who had family on the Highway Committee, had family obligations and business obligations, spent 4 hours on the road. And I know this because I was there walking with him, and he was interested in every single tree. So we have to acknowledge that. From my point of view, and I've written this out and I'll hand it to you. From my point of view, the project goal for the resurfacing project is, when the resurfacing project is completed, Garrett Bay Road will be a safe, durable road. The project will utilize appropriate signage, natural features, gentle roadway curves, and minimal clear zone depths to calm traffic and assure roadway safety while preserving the road's beauty. That would be the goal of the project that I would advocate for. And with regard to the clear zone, I think from my perspective, what I would recommend to the board is something just a little bit different than what the Highway Committee is likely to recommend. I know they haven't made their final determination yet. And that is, I would simply say, again, I've got this written down and I'll hand it out. Define the clear zone in the heavily wooded section of Garrett Bay Road between Maplewood and Badger Roads as the distance between the paved roadway and the utility pole that is currently placed closest to the roadway. So the clear zone is defined by the closest utility pole. And I say that because I believe it is consistent with the engineering requirements to resurface the road. And I say that because it will be a way in which the road sends a consistent message to drivers: slow down. So we're not undermining the message of the signage by pushing the road back. We're reinforcing the message of the signage by keeping the road close. That's precisely what we want to do. And we're very, very lucky in this respect, because unlike many things that the Department of Transportation specifies so clearly and handcuffs people, it specifically says, and I spoke with Steve about this before the meeting, it specifically says with regard to clear zone that this is not a design requirement. It goes out of its way to have enabling language that leaves the town, based on local conditions, to make the decision. It invites localities to say, you know what's best on your roads. And furthermore, it confesses something. It says the clear zone table that we show you in our guidance, it's not based on actual data. It's based on an extrapolation of some data, trying to hit some kind of a midpoint to give you some sort of guidance. So the department itself says the table that we're showing you is not based on hard data. Don't take it as hard data. Look at your local conditions. And so this is a wonderful process, I think, in which we are doing exactly that. So I've written this down, and I'll pass it around. And once again, thank you so much for providing the time. But that was a terrific map. I got to mention it twice because I don't think I could have done it. And Mike, what can I say? Great job.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go row 3. Anyone else in row 3? Row 4, please. Jim?
I'm Jim Moronic, that's Maronek, and 1519 East Boardwalk Road. There is talk of compromise, and I am speaking tonight with a plea for compromise, surprise. But not a compromise over how many trees to take down or how wide to clear cut. Instead, a compromise on how many roads to modernize. Let's start with just one road out of the 100+ miles of roads in Liberty Grove. If we can preserve the present character of Garrett Bay Road, we will have achieved a milestone in enlightened stewardship of our precious heritage. Garrett Bay Road is the missing link in a chain of beautiful heritage roads between Ellison Bay and Gills Rock. A moratorium has made the road ineligible for heritage road designation, but it is, by any measure, the most eligible candidate for preservation. It is arguably the most spectacular example of a rural road in the Midwest. How can we dare to erase this from our patrimony? The traveled surface of the road is in need of repair, although most countries on this planet would envy it. We can repair it carefully, with tender, loving care, and with respect for the trees which grow right up to the edge of the road and form its astonishing canopy. This is not a science beyond our reach. It is routine in communities which treasure their natural inheritance. We can repair without massive rebuilding. We can do this. There have been arguments proposed against such preservation, but they dissolve in the strength of resolve and the light of logic. Safety is not an issue. The trees and rolling roadway have a calming effect on traffic, as evidenced by the insignificant accident record on the road. Snow plowing is possible on the road as it has been for decades. In fact, the very unchanged existence of the road over generations proves that it can continue to endure into the future as it is. Fiduciary responsibility has been invoked, but which is more expensive, periodic repairs or complete rebuilding? Until that question is definitively answered, the town cannot quote costs. But never mind, because there are larger responsibilities which transcend dollars spent on asphalt. Return on investment is also advanced as an argument, but the town must consider the effect of our beautiful rural roads on property values, on tourist income, on historic value, and on quality of life. These factors must not be sacrificed to so-called improvement. Do not suburbanize Liberty Grove. If you've ever seen Buffalo Grove in Illinois, you know what I mean. And consider this. There is no outpouring of citizens in support of extended shoulders and clear zones beyond the roadway. None. Virtually no resident or visitor to Liberty Grove is clamoring for an extreme makeover of a precious treasure. Consider the idea of what you might call a road museum, a preservation of that which distinguishes Liberty Grove and saves it for our grandchildren to enjoy. A relatively small but hugely important piece of our legacy. We can save it. We can preserve it. We can do this. We must. But don't take it from me. The town's own engineer, in his report on July 1st, says this, and this is the definitive answer. Value judgment. There is a judgment as to the value of the trees that must be made. This is not something that I should do as an engineer. It should be up to the highway committee and town board to determine the value of the trees and which, if any, are justified in being removed. Trees enhance the value of roadways and properties. Trees reduce visual and noise impacts of vehicles and roadways. Rural wooded roads are an important part of the natural beauty of Door County, and this must be taken into consideration. And that's your own engineer speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Let's see, row 4. Anyone else in row 4, please? Okay. Going to the back of the room, I don't know if we can do this by tables or show of hands. Who would like to speak from the back of the room, please? 1, 2, 3. Let's have ladies first now.
Hi, my name is Kelly Mazeski, M-A-Z-E-S-K-I. I live at 12450 Landon Lane in Elizabeth. Thanks a lot for allowing this opportunity tonight. It's much appreciated. This week, I had the opportunity to speak with Jack Moneypenny, and he's the president of the Door County Visitors Bureau. And Jack was very generous and willing to share with me a report that the Bureau commissioned last year that's called the Traveler Motivation Study. They commissioned it in 2012. And this report stated that the most important characteristic in choosing Door County as a leisure destination for tourists is its overall destination quality. But what's most important for tonight's meeting is the second reason. And the second most important characteristic in choosing Door County as a leisure destination is, quote, the overall scenic beauty and visual appeal, end quote, of Door County. I feel confident in stating that Garrett Bay Road is a component of the scenic beauty here in Door County. And because of that, I think it also means that Garrett Bay Road plays a part in bringing in tourist dollars, tax revenue, job creation, and hopefully keeping our real estate taxes from going up. I also want to state that my husband and I have a ritual for first-time visitors when they
our family or friends that come to Door County for the first time. We always go to Door County Ice Cream Factory, grab some ice cream cones, and then drive them down Garrett Bay Road. And that's because we truly feel it's one of the most special drives in northern Door County. And without fail, our company always states how beautiful this road is and how wonderful the canopy is. But most importantly, many of them have come back second and third times and rented properties and cottages on Garrett Bay Road. So they are a perfect example of the tourists who come here because of the scenic beauty and visual appeal of Door County. So for these reasons and many more that I won't go into, I really ask you to please seriously consider choosing a resurfacing project that has minimal impact on the trees and canopy of Garrett Bay Road. Thank you very much.
Next. Sir, blue shirt.
Good evening. My name's Tom Ela, E-L-A, and we have a place at 12141 Rustic Lane, which is just off Garrett Bay Road outside of Ellison Bay. And my great aunt built a cottage there in the 20s, and I've been coming up to the cottage my whole life. And every time I'm up here, I bike from our place up to Gills Rock and back on Garrett Bay Road. I think this morning I saw maybe 4 cars on the road. I've never had an issue as far as safety goes. I would ask you all to maintain that rustic quality of Garrett Bay. It is absolutely a beautiful road, and you have a great opportunity because you have a functional highway almost paralleling it on 42. So I would hope that you could maintain the speed and efficiency of Highway 42 and yet the rustic character of Garrett Bay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am. All in the back.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sherry Rosenquist. I live at 12443 Cedar Dell Lane. And some of you may know my parents, Jack and Shirley Rosenquist, who lived on Birchwood Road, right after Garrett Bay Road. They built their house in '77 there. So, me being their daughter, I've spent an awful lot of time on Garrett Bay Road from the ages of 12 years old on, and spent a lot of years walking and bicycling up and down that road. Never had a problem with safety or anything. And now that I live off of Garrett Bay Road, I still see people doing what I've done for 30 years, walking up and down the road, taking their daily jogs, tourists, obviously tourists, bicycling up and down the road. A lot of you have said that you have bought property in northern Door County and off of Garrett Bay Road specifically because it's peaceful. You want to be here for the serenity and for the quiet, and it's absolute. It's amazing to me that I live here now. I didn't move here for the serenity. I moved here to be a working stiff, 60 hours a week, because I had to move up here for my mother. I've been living in the Chicago suburbs, but it's a huge blessing to live here, and I have decided that this is going to be my home for the rest of my life, and I want to be a part of making it the best that it can be. And I can certainly see how the demographics of the tourist industry are changing. The tourist industry is how I make my living here, and how so many other people do. the demographics are changing. I see more, like we've spoken about, more ecotourism. A lot of younger people without a lot of money to do the things that people have traditionally done here in Durham County. For years, what they do have is the money to take their bikes around our roads that are beautiful, and beautiful for a reason. Take their bikes around the roads. Take Garrett Bay Road up to Door Bluff Headlands. Good heavens, I mean, we're talking about, Garrett Bay Road in itself is a destination, but if anything, it ends up at Door Bluff Headlands and the Niagara Escarpment, of all things in the world. And I would absolutely love to see that promoted. I think it should have started to be promoted 20 years ago at least, and still I think we're negligent in it. But again, these demographics are changing, and we have to create a Door County for the next 20 years. We have the responsibility, and my nephew, as an example, he's 24 years old, and he's been coming to Grandma and Grandpa's since he was born. Now he's stayed with me, and in 20 years, he's going to be a potential property buyer. He's going to be the part of the crowd that produces the tax money in 20 years. What kind of Door County do we want to leave for them? And we all are old enough now to know how quickly 20 years goes by. It's amazing. So obviously, I would like to see, however we deal with Garrett Bay Road, to be the least invasive as possible in terms of its, in changing its character, which is the reason that people want to be here and want to come up here in the first place. Somebody mentioned to me the other day that some of the old maple trees between, say, Route 42 and Maple Drive, that I said to them, oh my gosh, I don't want to see those come down. And they said, well, they're old anyways and they're dying. If they live another 20 years, they'll serve their purpose for another 20 years. But it got me thinking, yes, not only do we want to protect that wooded corridor through the cedar, that ecological zone, that cedar swamp, from Maple Drive north to the Garrett Bay Hill, but our rural roads that Garrett Bay is an example of between 42 and Maple Drive. There's all those old maples on the sides are a good feature of not only, I should say, are a good feature of all the rural roads around here. If those are going to go in the next 20 years, maybe we should think about planting new ones now. I was, for the last week and a half, as I drive all over the northern door, everywhere I go, certainly up and down Old Stage Road, Wildwood, Highview, 57, everywhere I go, I'm now noticing these old maples, and I think if somebody...
Ma'am, I'm gonna have to call you on your time limit here, please.
Oh, okay, thanks. But anyways, I just think maybe we should take a look at what makes us in Northern Durham beautiful now and think, is it going to be there in 20 years? Do we want it? How do we want it to look in 20 years? Maybe we should think about some potential steps or programs to ensure the quality that we want. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Tom Hardy, Hardy. I live at 12625 Door Bluff Road, and I'll be brief, but I'm kind of out of line. I'm a new resident, and so I don't want to. My only thought is, I know there's some magic problem with going less than 35 miles an hour for a standard speed limit, but in my mind, 25 miles an hour sure would make it a lot safer. And I know there's a million reasons why you can't, but that's just my thought. Thanks.
All right, anyone else?
Anywhere? Yes, sir? Sauer, Sauer, 11629 Meadowwood Lane. I want to speak to this 35-mile speed limit. I've heard comments about we should have speed bumps. I'm not one for that. We've got to go to the state, go through this long process to get the speed limits reduced. But I'm wondering if there isn't something we can do in the road reconstruction. It is possible to put, I noticed you said we want to retain dips in the road that are presently there. If we could accelerate or maximize dips in certain locations or lifts, and I think you can talk to your road engineers, it is possible to put those in that will limit, when you go over 35 miles an hour, you start to get uncontrollable. It starts to get too much. And if you go 35 miles an hour, you can go through those, no problem. So I know there's been a lot of studies done on this, so why don't you check with your road engineers and see if there isn't something we can do to put this 35 mile an hour in effect just by the road reconstruction. Thank you.
The short answer to that, Peter, is that we have, and the DOT to test speed bumps. That's again a short answer, and I don't want to engage in a dialogue, but
I will consider speed bumps if they're just dips.
no. Anyone else? Okay, as I said at the outset, this was considered a public information hearing. There being no further people wishing to speak, we will adjourn this meeting. I thank you for attending, and have a good evening.